Welcome to the Green Table Talk, where we will have open and honest discussion about transplant. I'm your host, Janine Johnson. Do you know how long your mom was living with liver failure prior to her telling the family?
Process it's so foreign, right? Like, how does one get a kidney? It was so surreal.
When I was going through my kidney failure, everybody came out. Everybody had an opinion. Everybody was a doctor. And so I had a whole bunch of suggestions. Do this fast, do that fast. You gotta cleanse, you gotta juice. So my question to you is any of this real? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Green Table Talk, where we will have honest and open discussion about transplant. I'm your host, Janine Johnson. Today, we have the amazing story of Charles Cook. Charles, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Janine. Glad to be here.
Of course. So, as I said, your story is an amazing story. I've heard it before, and I thought it was just so riveting and so inspirational that I thought you had to be on the show. I'm not going to give away too much about your story. I'm going to let you do that. So, tell our guests a little bit more about your connection with the transplant world.
All righty. I'm actually a two-time transplant recipient. I received a heart transplant in 2016, and I had a kidney transplant in 2017. The kidney was kind of an unplanned side trip to the heart transplant. I had heart issues from the time that I was a teenager. I was born with a heart condition called HCM, which stands for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's a hereditary condition. I got it from my mom. She got it from her mom. It got them both when they were 59 years old. And I didn't even know that I had it till I was 17. And then nothing really happened with that until probably I was about 36. I was driving home from work one day and had a massive stroke behind the wheel of the car. Lived to tell about it. And then that is actually kind of after I recovered from that was what prompted me to move to Canada. I was born and raised in Georgia and met and married a girl from Ontario when I was graduating university. And after I had the stroke, we had planned on moving back to Canada the year before, which would have been 2005 when the kids got out of school. But then I had the stroke in March. And so I spent 14 months off my feet recovering and in rehab. Wow. And then, so that pushed all the plans back for about a year. And then once the doctors gave me the clearance to go ahead and be able to move, we decided during my rehab that the best thing that we could do as a family would be to put ourselves in a situation where when and if something happened to me, then she and the kids would be surrounded by the largest support network available.
Yes.
And moving closer to her family, which was up here. Mm-hmm. Landed in Canada in Kitchener-Waterloo, where I live now, back in June of 2006. So it's been 15 years. And unfortunately, things didn't work out between she and I. And, but I still have a good relationship with the kids, which is.
That's good.
And then Monica, who is my wife now, man, she's been a rock. She came on board kind of right as everything fell apart. I went down to Toronto General Hospital. After I got up here, I started being watched by them. First, I was watched by a cardiologist in Kitchener. And then he started sending me down to Toronto General because they do the heavy lifting on end-stage heart failure. And
yes.
Kind of getting checkups 6 months apart here in Kitchener and then down at TGH. Mm-hmm. And went in January 2015 to get a regular checkup, and I didn't get to go home for 100 days.
My goodness.
Which showed that my heart had worn out to the point that I needed a transplant. And then they did another test, which showed that there was so much pressure built up inside my chest, it was unsafe for me to receive a transplant at that time. So they needed to come up with a better plan. And the better plan was to give me a mechanical heart called an LVAD, left ventricular assist device. And 8 days
after. Actually, sorry, quick question. Did you know about the LVAD prior to anything, no. Like any of this happening?
No,
you never knew it existed?
On the job training. I didn't even know anything about strokes. And the best thing that came out of the stroke, besides me moving to Canada, was the neurologist that I had told me that there were three things that were going to be key in my recovery. First and foremost was my attitude. I said I can bring a positive attitude to anything. So I got that, checked that box. The next thing was my age. I was 36 when I had the stroke, so I was young enough to expect a decent recovery if I worked really hard and had good help along the way.
That's good.
And then the third was what I had, before I had the stroke. And, I was in pretty good mental shape and physical health as well before that. And that's carried me through, so like everything that happened laid the foundation for the next thing that I was going to have to go through. So the stroke happened first, then the heart failure. And then we were right up to the point where they decided to give me the LVAD the morning of the surgery. And things did not go according to plan. There were several complications. I lost a lot of blood, which caused my kidneys to run dry for too long. They wound up dying. And then when
I'm sorry, did you say you almost died or you did die?
Oh, I did die. I didn't say that, but I died twice actually on the table.
Wow.
Brought me back. And then when they got me into the recovery room, they said that I'd suffered from two major complications. The first one was I caught an infection that kept me, down in CVICU because it's infection after infection after infection. I was down in CVICU for almost 7 weeks. And there wasn't anybody that thought I was going to get out of there alive, but I did. The second major complication was that the kidneys ran dry for too long because of the blood loss. They wound up dying. Shortly after surgery, there was some hope that with a little boost from dialysis that my kidneys might bounce back on their own, but they never did. So I was on hemodialysis from the day of my surgery in January 2015, all in the way until I got my kidney transplant in October of 2017.
Wow. So let me ask you a quick question though, before we continue.
Sure.
Give me a little insight as to what your life was like before any of these health issues. Like, what were you into? Were you into sports? Were you like, what was your life? What was Charles Cook like pre-health issues?
Pre-health issues, I was literally one of America's best and brightest.
Amazing.
I graduated high school at the age of 17. Less than a month later, I was taking my oath of office at the United States Naval Academy.
Wow.
Back in 1986, the year the movie Top Gun came out. So back then, everybody wanted to fly jets for the U.S. Navy. Tom Cruise had done. And I was going to get a chance to try to turn that dream into a reality. And so back in high school, I played football, I wrestled, I ran track.
Wow.
All of it, very athletic, never had any issues. The only sign that there was something possibly wrong was that I had a heart murmur. But a lot of young athletes had that. So I did the physical with no problem. And then made it through plebe summer, which is kind of like our boot camp at the academy. And then the upperclassmen came back for us to all start school together in the fall, and went for a run that first week and started getting chest pains. Nothing like that had happened before. They sent me to the clinic to get checked out, and then from the clinic to the hospital to another hospital, and then they diagnosed me with HCM. And that, caused me to get a medical separation from the academy. 17, I had the next 9 years of my life planned out. 4 years at the academy, 2 years in the fleet. 18, because this was 6 months later, I'd gone home for Christmas leave and then came back. And then the decision came down over Christmas leave, but I didn't find out until I got back and reported for duty for the second semester. I got sent home, with a medical separation. Like, what do I do now?
Exactly.
And everything's been turned upside down. But my
now,
dad.
Did you know at this point that this was hereditary and that your mom had the exact same thing? Okay, so this was
not at all.
Wow.
This is all kind of after the fact that we went back, and kind of backtracked and figured all this stuff out as I went down the road. And actually, none of that stuff came out until after I had the stroke. And then started digging into, the medical history and then my family medical history, and like, oh, okay. Well,
this is what
knowing that, then that would have been kind of helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
But like I said, it's all on the job training. So then we kind of fast forward again back up to Canada with the first LVAD. Things didn't go wrong. My kidneys got wiped out. So when I got out of the hospital, I came back to Kitchener and I became an in-center hemodialysis patient at Grand River Hospital.
Yes.
And I was doing hemodialysis, the whole time.
Now, did you think about
peritoneal? Was that where you're going to ask me about peritoneal?
No, I was just going to say regarding kidney, like you just said, your kidneys are completely wiped out. You're on dialysis at this point. was the thought, did you have any thought about, reaching out to family members to possibly being a living kidney donor or deceased kidney list? Like what was your thoughts on that?
None of that was in my head. At that point, I was just trying to stay alive,
Gotcha.
because it was so bad with the heart surgery. I went to sleep worried about my heart, and I woke up literally attached to a dialysis machine.
My goodness.
My kidneys were at risk. And then this is a whole new world. I got over the stroke, moving up here to a new country. And then I guess I'd been here for about, I moved here in 2006. So that would have been, the heart took 9 years to wear out, to the point that it's just, we got to replace it. We propped it up as much as we can, but now it's got to be done. And then that thing go wrong with the surgery to wipe out the kidneys. And then now I'm on dialysis. So trying to stay alive, they didn't expect me to get out after the heart surgery. I did get home. I was very weak. But it's just kind of one of those, well, this is the obstacle that's in front of me. I got to knock it down. Tell me what I got to do to pass this and keep going. And that.
Do you remember how long surgery was? Like how long was the transplant?
The LVAD, or for the kidney?
For both, actually.
I don't really remember. Probably 4 to 6 hours, I guess.
That's for the LVAD.
Yeah, for the LVAD.
Okay. And the kidney transplant?
Kidney transplant was under 4 hours. And
okay.
If there was any such thing as a pleasant transplant experience, then that was it. Because the LVAD went so bad, then I wound up having to have a second LVAD. I got the first one in January, the second one in May.
Wow.
That one kept me alive long enough to get the heart transplant in April of 2016, and the kidney in October of 2017. So just kind of following along the kidney journey, I came back home after the LVAD surgery on dialysis at Grand River Hospital. My schedule was Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I did that for about a year. Somewhere around the 10-month mark, they presented me with the opportunity to learn to do hemodialysis at home. It was actually one of the heart doctors at Toronto General that suggested it. He said, I bet you'd be, after I got the second LVAD, the pressures that come down, and then they put me on the waiting list. And all that is good news. And so, I'm excited about that. Like, I'm alive, we're moving forward.
Yes.
And then he said, I think you'd be a perfect candidate for home hemodialysis. And, my face is kind of like, okay, that's a good idea. But inside I'm like, man, you must be crazy, because just now learning how to live with this mechanical heart, which I don't know if you know how an LVAD works, but it's a mechanical pump inside your chest. There's a drive line that comes out. It's like an electrical cord that goes to what's called a controller, which is kind of like a monitor that tells you how much blood is getting pumped through and all that kind of stuff that you can see on the outside. And then there's batteries. There's 14-volt lithium ion batteries that power your heart. They have a 5-hour lifespan, and I had to carry a video camera bag with the batteries in it at all times, so I could out. And then when I went to sleep at night, I literally had to plug myself in. Like, there's two ends, from that electrical cord that comes out of your stomach that branches off, and then you plug those into a charging station. And that's how you can go for longer than 5 hours, so you can get a good night's sleep. And all of that. And then he says, you're going to be perfect.
Do this in addition to what you're going through now.
You want me to learn how to run a dialysis machine on top of that?
Wow.
I don't know about that. And fortunately, it took a few months for everything to get worked out, because they had to come to our place and make sure that there was proper electrical. They were going to have to reconfigure some of the water supply and that to get the machine hooked up. So by the time that they actually had to come back to me and say, Charles, are you going to do this? Yes or no? Then I'd had enough of in-center hemodialysis. Like I said, I was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I was 4 hours on my runs, and I was taking Mobility Plus to and from the dialysis center. So I was running on their schedule. After every run, I felt horrible. All I wanted to do was come home and get on the couch and just go to sleep. I felt like a wrung out dish rag was the way I always described it to people.
Wow.
Days in between, all I was doing was trying to gather up enough energy to go back into the center and make myself feel bad all over again. I'm like, man, there's got to be a better way. So I thought with home hemo that at least would break the cycle, because with home hemo, you do it 5 days a week. I took 2 days off was my schedule. I took Tuesdays and Sundays off. And it sounds weird that you do something that makes you feel bad more often, but then you feel better at the end.
Yes.
That's the way it worked out, because there wasn't those peaks and valleys that you go through on in-center dialysis. Because if you think about it, you only have that cleansing 3 days a week. The other 4 days a week, the toxins are building up in your body. And that's helping to make you feel sick as well. So when I started doing the home hemo, those 5 days a week, I was averaging somewhere between 3 and 3.5 hours on the machine, actually doing my runs. But that's what I liked about it, was that I was in charge of everything. It was kind of scary at first to know that I'm going to be hooking myself up, running every drop of blood in my body.
You're literally in charge of everything that's happening in your body at this point.
Exactly. And, but I found out that I've been trained so well that I never really had any issues. And if I did, the number for the on-call nurse was right there on the machine. I just had to pick up my cell phone and call, and they would be there. And I did that for 15 months. And it was a really empowering experience. And
let me ask you a personal question. Now that you mentioned that you were plugged in when you go to bed, and that's how you're able to have more battery life, more heart life, I guess you could say, when you're sleeping. How is it that you're sleeping? Like, are you not allowed to turn to the left, or like, how does, like, only on your back? Like, how does that work now that you're plugged in?
It's best for me. I just slept on my back. It came out, pointing towards my right, and then I would have the charging machine on the right-hand side on a little stool on the floor, on the, like if you're laying in bed, on the right-hand side of the bed. But then right next to that is my sleep apnea machine. So I'd learned, I'd had that right before the stroke. I was diagnosed with it. And I'd learned to sleep on my back with a full face mask all the time. So that kind of helped with me not, having to move around. That's one of my favorite things.
When I sleep, I'm all over the place. So I was just like, how, if I was in that position, how would I cope? Because like I said, I could start this way in the middle of the night and turn that way. Like, I'm all over the place. I was just kind of curious about that. So you managed to work out a system.
Yeah. But that's funny that you mentioned that, because now I notice it. I put on my sleep apnea mask when I get ready to go to sleep, but I can turn over on my right side, because that's my natural way to sleep, is on my right side, and that's it. And then my wife, like, jokes with me all the time, is like, she'll get up and she's like, why are you, so far over on the edge of the bed? And I'm like, I'm just being over there because I had all these cords coming out of me. Hoses and stuff hooked up to me, that I need to be as close to the edge as possible. And then it's like, I don't move. Like, get up in the morning, it's like, you can just pull the cover back up and the bed's made on my side, because I don't move at night. But so that was a good question.
What was the most difficult part of recovery, like from surgery, like both surgeries? What would you say is the most difficult part?
I think it got easier as we went along. So with LVAD 1, the biggest lesson I learned, and that I would like to pass on to everybody, is when you get discharged from the hospital, that doesn't mean that you're well. That means you're good enough to go home. That doesn't mean that you go back and start doing everything just like you left off or whatever. Before you were healthy. So that recovery was really rough, and probably should have gone to a rehab hospital, because I got out of there after 100 days, and you figure, if they kept me for that long, then I should be good to go. But I was weak. Fortunately, Monica kind of became my caregiver and nurse, as well as my wife. So basically, Monica was heaven sent, literally heaven sent. Absolutely, without a doubt. I tell her all the time, I spent my whole life getting ready to be with you. Man, that's beautiful. That's nice. That's I like that. So tell me, since surgery, what is it that you can't do anymore? Like,
Is there certain things you can't eat anymore that you used to eat before? I mean, obviously there's things you can't do, but anything that really stands out in your mind that, man, I really wish I could, do what that you can't do anymore.
It's weird. Kind of the first thing that popped into my head is grapefruit, because of all the medication that I'm on, and grapefruit messes with that. Not that I've had a grapefruit probably since I was a teenager, but I used to have those as snacks, and I would freeze them.
Yes.
Like I would put them in the freezer, and then when I get home from school, I'd we had these special grapefruit spoons, and I'd dig it out and chew on the grapefruit. And that actually goes to one of the things that they taught me for home hemo, was when you're on hemo, you're fluid restricted, because you don't want your kidney, well, if you have any kidney function, you don't want to overload it by having too much fluid in your body that you get rid of or filter. So one of the tricks they told me was to freeze grapes, and grapes are sweet. They make you feel like you're drinking water or you're getting your fluids in without raising your fluid intake. So when they told me that, it kind of sent my mind back to the grapefruit thing from when I was a kid.
I wish somebody told me that.
Yeah,
that would have been very helpful if I knew that information when I was going through.
Let everybody know, but it works, especially as hot as it's been. It's
of course
easy to do.
Wow. In terms of diet, what's your diet like now that we're talking about foods? What's your diet like now? Like, is there a lot of restrictions now? As you mentioned, grapefruit, I'm the same. I can't have grapefruit either because of the meds that I'm on. But is there anything else like that you've changed? Anything else?
Well, it's basically eat healthy, because everybody in the world needs to be on a low sodium diet. So that's number one for blood pressure. Or just the effects that too much sodium has on your body that are all negative. So try to, stay away from salt as much as possible. And then one of the side effects of the medication that I was on, which is prednisone, a steroid,
it makes you gain a lot of weight. I could attest to that. I went through that as well.
Yeah, the prednisone, face. But one of the anti-rejection medications that I was on actually caused me to have lung disease. And so the treatment for that condition is high doses of prednisone. High doses of prednisone in turn turned me into a diabetic.
Oh my goodness.
Diabetic ketoacidosis, and went to the hospital. And 4 days later, when I came out, I was an insulin dependent diabetic. And
I didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah. Another one of those things that people didn't know. And, but I was on insulin, 2 types, for probably, 6 or 8 months. But as the prednisone worked on taking care of the lung disease, the dose decreased, every 6 to 8 weeks. And then finally it got down to probably about 10 milligrams a day. And kind of the balance with the amount of insulin that I needed, because we knew what the cause for the diabetes was prednisone induced. And so as the prednisone was decreased, then my body started to get more back into its natural rhythm with being able to produce enough insulin to handle the sugars that I was I was intaking, kind of thing. And that was one thing also, is try to stay away from sweets, as much as possible, the pop, candy, the ice cream, that kind of stuff. There's nothing that you can't have, but you need to have it in moderation, which is good sense for anything, and then plenty of water. Try to drink water more than anything. That's my number one beverage. I may have a pop every now and then. I may have a beer every now and then, because that was the one thing was after I had my heart, I said, when can I have a beer? And it was basically, I had to wait for a year, because with the heart transplant, the average is about 10 years, because it either kills you within the first year from rejection, or you get about 20 good years out of it. So that first year is, very, very, you're under the microscope, blood work all the time, and they're trying to get everything right with all your medications and balance.
Very crucial.
Sure that, you know, everything is good, biopsies, and all that kind of testing. But then after the first year, it's kind of like, okay, you made it. Now we kind of got your medication list right that's working with your body. And that's one of the things that fascinates me, is that everyone's is different.
Yes.
You know, because everybody's body reacts to the medication differently.
Mm-hmm.
And they got mine dialed in, and you know, on that 1 year anniversary of the transplant, I had my first beer. I had not even like a half a beer, just like a shot. Like, okay, I made it. You know, that was my celebration. And
yes.
Yeah. And you gotta.
So,
you know.
Sorry, don't cut you off. Another quick question that came to mind.
Sure,
we both agree that your wife was heaven sent.
Yes.
So let me know, do you feel that religion or faith, or if you believe in some type of religion or faith, do you feel that that had something to do with your journey? Do you feel that, you know, somewhere along the line that, you know what, someone's watching over me? So, you know, something, yes.
Absolutely, without a doubt. You know, there's no way that I'm sitting here talking to you without God saying that it's not your time to die yet. You know, and people always tell you that, you know, kind of after the stroke, people were like, you know, you still have work to do, you know, and I'm kind of like, I don't know. I mean, that's just something that people say. But then when you kind of look back at what happened and then everything that's happened afterwards, there's no way, you know, there's no such thing as luck. I'm blessed to be sitting here talking this evening, because things could have gone wrong so many times and not to be here, for me not to believe. And I had a strong faith, you know, well beforehand, but now I just know. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that there's a higher power that I call God, you know, that's looking out and has a plan for me to do. And I think really, Jennen, the only reason that I'm still alive is to be able to sit here and talk to you and share my story with other people, because it can help somebody else. You know, I can't think of another there's nothing I've done, you know, that deserve for me to make it through all the experiences that I've had, you know, other than that, then he wants me to continue doing this work. And, you know, that's why I'm here. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. I love that you said that. I'm glad you said that, because sometimes people don't realize that, you know what I mean? That you have to have some type of spiritual base, some type of faith to help you through this journey. You can't do it by yourself. You have to have some type of faith-based or some type of spiritual guidance on this journey.
Absolutely.
That's
and that
amazing.
was instilled me by my mom and dad. And my dad, I think of him often. They both passed away back in 2008. And my dad said, you think you believe in God, just wait till you have kids. You know, you know, and it was true. And, you know, have a beautiful son and daughter, you know, and it's been a blessing for me. And that was kind of the drive inside me, was to hang around long enough, no matter what obstacle was placed in front of me, I was going to get through it, because they still needed me. And my reward is seeing them now at 25 and 23, living their lives in Toronto as adults, you know, out there in the real world, making it, you know, and
it's a good feeling.
I wouldn't have gone through anything just to be able to see that. And that's my big blessing and my big reward.
Yes.
And then part of my payback is sharing the story, the experiences that I've had, because what I want people to know is that I'm just a regular guy, you know, just had a whole lot of stuff happen to me. And I just decided way back that I'm not going to quit. You know, I'm never going to give up. I'm going to hang in there and keep banging, as I say it. You know, that's my philosophy, is that life puts obstacles in all of our paths. Our job is to, you know, keep banging at the one directly in front of us till we knock it down, then we move on to the next one. Because as you know, there's always going to be a next one. So you never get, no matter how bad the odds are, you just hang in there and keep banging. And that's it. I've tried to be a living example for my kids, you know, through all of this, is that life has a way of knocking you down. But as long as you can get up one more time, then you get knocked down. You're going to be all right in this world. And it's as simple as that. You know, if I can do it,
amazing.
You can do it too.
That's beautiful. I can't even end the show in any other way. That was just perfectly said. That's just beautiful. I think that's great. Charles, thank you very much for being on our show. Thank you very much for sharing your amazing journey and your story with us. I'm sure it's impacted someone out there that's watching this right now. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Thank your wife for being so amazing as well and standing by you through this journey, because it's not easy. It is difficult, and she stood by you, and that was amazing. So thank you very much once again for being here. Greatly appreciated. Now, in order for me to end the show, I have to put out a positive vibe out there. And today, my affirmation for the day is don't give up, keep trying. And if you fail, get right back up and try again. That is all I have to say for today's episode. Thank you for joining us on the Green Table Talk. Take care and have a blessed day.